Welcome to the Smart Driving Cars podcast. Thank you for taking the time. I'm Fred Fishkin, along with the Faculty Chair of Autonomous Vehicle Engineering at Princeton University, Alain Kornhauser. Hi, Alan.
Hey, good afternoon, Fred.
Good afternoon. And with us once again is consultant and publisher of The Dispatcher, Michael Sena, who's not in Sweden this time. Hi, Michael.
Hi, I'm in Scranton. So I'm really enjoying being with you from West Scranton, home of the invaders.
Excellent. Is it snowing there?
It's about 30 degrees Celsius. It's over 80 degrees.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
Well, let's turn to the latest edition of The Dispatcher, Michael. On top, you tackle the issue of vehicle-to-vehicle communication. I guess we should say issues. There are a bunch of them.
Well, I have written about vehicle-to-vehicle communications quite often in the past, and then it's always been the same message. The European Commission is determined to get Wi-Fi DSRC-based systems in place for a number of reasons, which they feel are good reasons. And the focus of this article is not against DSRC. It's not to try to convince the European Commission or NHTSA. NHTSA is they've dumped the whole idea of DSRC primarily because the Federal Communications Commission kind of forced their hand. After 20 years, no one was using it and decided that they needed the spectrum for Wi-Fi. But at the same time, the FCC determined that it was the remainder of the spectrum was going to be used for cellular V2X and not Wi-Fi. So the US seems to have kind of come out of that whole, Stone Age thinking. The European Commission hasn't. But the focus of this article is on separating vehicle to everything other than vehicle to vehicle. And the reason for that is that vehicle to vehicle can be done quite easily without major issues. The primary problems with vehicle communication is when you start to involve the public sector with roadside units and infrastructure for vehicle to infrastructure communication. And that's where it gets difficult, both for the car companies to implement a system that has to be integrated with the infrastructure. The idea, the whole concept of this came to me during a discussion during the ITU Future Network Car with symposium, where the head of the Department of Transportation in Washington talked about the problems of communication or having the government involved in communications with vehicles, particularly from the liability standpoint. Having to be in a position of delivering data to vehicles and potentially, and this is where it got sticky, potentially to vehicles without human drivers, where the data would have to be interpreted by a system and then implemented and used by a system. And his point was, if we get ourselves into that situation, there's no telling what could happen in terms of liability. So that kind of struck me. On the one hand, you had people saying, and we really would like to have vehicle-to-vehicle communication, and we're not getting it. And on the other hand, someone saying, well, we really shouldn't be in, as governments, we really shouldn't be in the communication with vehicle with data. And so that's the main point of the article.
You have thoughts on if you were designing a system, what you feel would work here and what might be needed?
Well, vehicle-to-vehicle communication is quite simple, and it can be done very easily with cellular V2X. It's cellular V2X, the latest versions of cellular V2X, LTE, and coming into 5G, but you don't need 5G for this, have a free point-to-point broadcast alternative So you don't have to have a subscription. You don't have, even if it's cellular, you don't have to have a subscription. You're not paying for the communication. It's built into the network. It's not similar in terms of technology as 911 or 112, where that is free to the person who's making that call. If you dial 112 or 911, you're not paying for that call. But it's the same concept. It's a free to air alternative, but within the cellular network. So that could be implemented very easily with the systems that are on board the cars today, without having to have the kind of cybersecurity infrastructure in place when you would have a communication to and from a vehicle, where you would have acknowledgements to and from the vehicle. With cellular, with a V2V, whether it's Wi-Fi or cellular V2X, it's essentially a broadcast. It's going out into the to the ether, and it's picked up by anyone within a certain area. And with that, we could do warnings that are the kind of warnings that could really prevent accidents. Whereas with the kind of things that you can do with infrastructure are mainly informational. I mean, they're not the warning things. The warnings are vehicle to other vehicles. You're not sending warnings, although it might be an ICE warning, but that kind of ICE warning could just as easily be coming from another vehicle, as opposed to having to go through a network and process and then send out. And what I said also is that the kind of messages that you would be sending, like risk avoidance, those are the ones that are problematical. Those are the ones that you might get in trouble if you, let's say your sister, you say, well, will cars depend on that kind of information? Most probably not. Most cars today that are operating in a driverless or self-driving mode, they're operating based on the information that they've got on board and the information that they're getting from the sensors. There's no dependence on getting information from outside, because both of latency and also potentially incorrectness.
Well, I jump into this, and I guess I have no patience for any of it. I get spammed enough on my phone with stuff that I don't want to see, and I just don't want the messages. There has been, since it's almost day one, vehicle-to-vehicle communications in vehicles. That's what the tail light's all about. Okay? It goes at the speed of light. It actually turns on before the brakes are applied, I think, in the whole system, before the calipers hit. The light goes on. No latency. And the people who really should be seeing it get it. Okay?
If they're watching, yes.
Well, if they're watching, but they're supposed to be watching, and if they're not, then they should have an imaging system that watches for them, and it will get it faster than da.
I agree.
And to me, this is all ITS, gizmo, people trying to sell stuff that is like whatever. Plus, only those that have will have. Whereas the brake light, boom, everybody sees it. The backup light, boom. The horn, the turn signal. Okay? And damn it, when I've gone and talked to the NHTSA type folks and said, oh my goodness, I think it would be nice is if I turned on my cruise control, that a little light would go on in my car, whatever signal, so that the people around me would know what mode I'm driving in. Holy mackerel, the information content of that, that's gigabytes. Because now, if it's a certain color, if it's stupid cruise control, and another color that it's intelligent cruise control, then anybody seeing it will know how my car is going to behave. That's what the turn signal is going to do, anticipation of behavior. Okay. And now you want to go out and set up some sort of communication protocol that now whatever that's what it do. And then who knows what it's going to go in there and da da dee da da da. Oh my goodness. I mean, you're driving me nuts here. Okay.
I'm with you almost at a level of agreeing, but not quite.
Okay.
I agree with everything you said about the analog communications and your idea of having a light, because now I really use the assisted automated cruise control, because I use it all the time when I'm on a highway.
Yeah.
Now, and with the old version, it didn't automatically slow down when I was,
which is unfortunate. Yeah.
Yeah, but now we have a new
Yeah.
where it does work, and it's terrific.
It's terrific.
The problem I have is that I've got people who are, left lane cruisers, and I've got people behind me, way behind me, that go into the left lane because they're also on the cruise control, right? And they don't want to slow down for me, so they get over into the left lane. And I'm
in Jersey, they get over to the right lane. I mean, if you do that in Germany, they run you off the road, which you should be run off the road. But yes, go ahead.
I think all the analog, and I think your idea of the light is good. There are a few occasions where I believe that vehicle-to-vehicle communications, and I could show you one on my telephone where my good friend, who I should have had lunch with on yesterday, didn't make the trip from Utah because someone who wasn't watching went through a stop sign, and he was looking to the right instead of to the left, and she hit him. And so his car was demolished. Luckily he wasn't demolished. It hit him front to front, nose to nose, but from the left-hand side. If there had been a message from that car to his car, that would have been prevented. And that's the kind of accident that this kind of thing. No, you say no, I say yes.
I say there, if we had automated emergency braking systems that worked, then that car wouldn't have hit it.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's do that. Okay. Let's do that. Let's put systems in there that you can't turn off that actually do work. That car should not have gone through there. We can do that. That separates it. We're not doing the commute. That puts the risk. Go ahead.
New cars. We can do this. We can do vehicle-to-vehicle communications with cars that are on the market, on the roads now. We can do that. It's not a big deal to do that.
But the system's not going to be, have any kind of penetration until I'm dead and gone. Guess what? I don't care.
We could have penetration the same way we have seatbelt laws, the same way we've implemented the seatbelt.
It took a long time with the seatbelt.
Yeah, it did. But with a vehicle-to-vehicle communication, we could have a system, and we could mandate a system and have those in place.
But the problem with that communication is then you don't know what some guy or gal who's looking for 15 seconds of fame is going to do to go garbage it up. My car should have an automated emergency braking system that works. They were supposed to put that in there to stop 5-mile-an-hour collisions how long ago? Why haven't they?
Yeah, I agree with you, Alan. But if you've got a 2006 Corolla Verso, you're not going to have an automated braking system in that car. If you've got a 2014, whatever it was, you're not going to have an automated braking system in there.
If I buy a 2023 S-Class Mercedes, it doesn't.
Yeah, but that's like 1% of 1% of all the people who can afford that. So let's talk reality.
What's so tough about it? That is crap. It is not expensive to put that in there, really.
So why don't all the cars?
I have no idea why they haven't.
I don't have it in the latest and the greatest.
I mean, it's apparently the automated emergency backup braking systems do work. Why? Because there you're going 5 miles an hour. The other ones, they're afraid of the false alarms that the darn thing's going to go in there and and then it stops in the middle of the road when it doesn't, when you haven't run through it, because they're not. I agree.
All right.
I don't know.
Okay, we're on a. I'm not going to pass the budget busting bill because you did this sort of thing. I'm talking about doing something, but I'm not saying don't do better braking. Don't do that. All I'm saying is if what I have said is don't hold up vehicle to vehicle communication. If you've got all the proof that vehicle to vehicle communication saves lives, and this is what folks are saying. They're not saying that vehicle to X infrastructure save lives. They're saying these are a couple of the applications that we can save lives and we can reduce the number of accidents and potential deaths. I'm not saying don't do everything else. All I'm saying is don't hold up the vehicle to vehicle communication because it isn't vehicle to infrastructure communication. Let that, if that's going to work, if you're going to get that in sometime, but we can do vehicle to vehicle communication today using a cellular network with systems that almost every vehicle being sold today has cellular infrastructure already built into them. We can use that same cellular information structure to send simple messages to the car saying, I'm coming too fast. I'm going to go through this stoplight. And if you're anywhere in the vicinity, stop yourself. That's all I'm saying. Very simple.
But as you pointed,
to do it, but yeah.
As you pointed out in your article, of course, if the government gets in the middle of it, then they assume part of the liability. And if they assume part of the liability, they're going to get dragged in. They're going to have to give themselves indemnification from that, and all that stuff it's all going to be ugly. What about now the false alarm that comes in and says, "Oh my goodness, it's not going to work with probability 1 or without false alarm." So you've got to deal with that. And it just, I don't know. And I guess, and the 81% that you have in there with respect to the accidents, that means that all the other stuff doesn't work. And in fact, I think it's still discussed. Plus, I'd like to argue V to X is really good for some things. If the slip control on my vehicle, if the vehicle slips, and it should be smart enough to determine whether or not this is because of ice or hydroplaning, then a message should go out with a GPS location. And whether or not then NRIX picks it up and then Copilot decides to absorb that, and then Copilot in its turn-by-turn navigation system decides to have the folks who happen to be approaching that then put up a message in the vehicle, I think that's the way that's to be used. And it should be used. Right now, the NRIX stuff is used in Copilot. And personally, I am enormously biased, as everybody knows. Darn it, that damn thing is good.
Yeah, and
the expected delays for the next 60 miles ahead is damn good, even though it's anticipating a future. That's all V to X stuff that's going on.
That's already in place.
I know.
What I'm arguing against, and I will continue to argue against, is putting an infrastructure in place that's operated by, we're paying for it because it's public money, operated by governmental organizations instead of being operated by the organizations that are already in place that are doing this.
I agree with you 1,000,000%. Okay.
Putting in roadside units to be able to collect data from the vehicles and to be able to send data to the vehicles when we have a cellular network which is already being used by car companies. Audi, Volvo, BMW, Mercedes, particularly in Europe, are using this infrastructure to send exactly those kinds of messages to the vehicles.
Michael, you keep saying that the ITS America is gonna censure you. I mean, this is all a bunch of people who want to sell gizmos to government. It's been that way since the creation of since ITS America was formed. That was the big payday. My goodness, get a government, get a beltway bandit. Entitlement Act or something like that. I mean, you're absolutely correct. It is so silly, and it's amazing it's still being promoted.
Well, I'm certainly not against intelligent transport systems in general, or specifically certain kinds of things, but I am opposed to using a public organized, public paid for infrastructure when we already have a privately supported one that works internationally. It works globally. The companies that you mentioned, I'm not going to give them any advertisements. You mentioned them. Those companies are operating internationally, and they're providing very good services for all of the companies involved, and they can continue to do that. But we don't need to be supporting publicly funded infrastructure, this sort of national information nodes that are collecting data and then providing that data around. We have private companies that are doing this in a very good way already, and we should be supporting them. That's my.
I agree with you. And another product placement here. Maybe I should have a little OnStar logo here, whatever. But
yeah,
did we get funding from OnStar, Fred? Oh, geez, we didn't. That's okay. Maybe it's
Volvo on call.
Oh, yeah. Anyway.
We'll turn to another issue from the latest dispatcher, Michael. You say that more can be done to prevent the theft of catalytic converters, which are being taken because of the precious metals.
Yeah, I said there's rhodium and them there hills. I shake my head whenever I think about how much money we put into cars. I mean, precious metals, rare earth metals going into all of these devices. Why did we ever develop catalytic converters that were based on rare earth materials? I mean, at some point in time, somebody had to figure it out. It's like, we have copper being stolen off the roofs of churches and the downpipes of drainage pipes, because they get a lot of money for stealing this stuff. And people suddenly, their cars are made inoperable because thieves go in there with pretty simple devices and are able within minutes to take off the catalytic converter and then sell the materials in there for a couple of $100 to $1,000. Why do we do that? Why do we put those things in vehicles? We could prevent cars from being stolen. I had my car parked in my Saab, my 1983 Saab, parked at Logan Airport, and I had packed my first time I'd done this and last, put the keys in my trench coat and put the trench coat in the bag, and the bag didn't come. The bag was lost somewhere, and so I didn't have my keys to get in the car. They were in the car within seconds, and okay, they couldn't start.
It was that thing they jam in the window, man. I think I used to be able to operate one of those suckers.
Yeah. Why do we allow cars to be stolen? Why do we have this devices that we put in cars that thieves want to have and make them so expensive? In particular, this one really got to me. Having these really, really expensive materials in a device that's supposed to be, it's intended to prevent emissions. I mean, it was a great idea, but did they have to use those materials? And I say no. We shouldn't be putting expensive things that people can steal. And it's the whole thing just goes around, because the materials are stolen, then they go into a group of people who process them, and eventually they're sold back to the car companies and at lower prices because they're not out of the mines. And then they get put in these devices, and so the devices get less expensive. But it's a classic commercial circular economy. But at the end, the insurance companies are paying the owners of the car. The car owners are inconvenienced because the car has to be fixed, and there's no reason for it, I don't think. So stop doing it.
Michael, it gets worse than that. I mean, look. Now we don't put a key into a key thing to turn it.
Yep.
We now have we can now remotely start our car. Our keys have admit something because there's a battery in there, and it emits a signal so that the car knows that the key is in there. So if you're Alain Kornhauser and you leave your car on your front driveway and you leave your keys in the car, because every time you walk out of the house, you forget to grab them. So therefore it's easy. You don't have to go back in the house. Then all they do is drive down Cleveland Lane and they have a device that listens to the key. And if it says, hey, I can hear the key, guess what? The key is in that Mercedes. And all of a sudden, you come back from running in the morning and did Elizabeth take the car? Where's the car? Oh, it's in New Orleans.
Yeah, in New Orleans.
And first, when they steal them, what's the first thing they do? They disable the GPS system, and because they know how to disable it. So even if you have, hey, find my car, however, they end up using the Easy Pass tag. Why? So they don't have to pay the toll. Guess what? That's the way you figure out where in the heck your car's been by the time you end up looking for your Easy Pass thing. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So all of these things that are help thieves somehow, I don't know, maybe they think they sell more cars if they don't prevent the cars from being stolen easily.
They do.
Yeah.
I went a few years ago. This is a true story. Went down to the local Mercedes dealer here, got a chance to talk to the owner, to discuss, what was coming in the coming Mercedes, and where I'm talking about, cars that don't crash. And he's telling me about all the safety mechanisms in Mercedes that saved this woman's life in a Mercedes. The car got totaled and she came back and bought another one.
Yeah.
Okay. But if the car had automated emergency braking system that worked, it wouldn't have crashed. He would have sold one, not two. So when you're talking to him about automated emergency braking systems that work, everybody, of course, there's going to be a friendly shaking of the head, but the eyes are rolled back. Come on.
It's like illegal immigration into the United States.
Oh, yeah, we might as well go there. Let's see, ITS America, Mercedes, whatever. We're on a roll today.
Well, there is another solution to the catalytic converter problem. Electric vehicles, Michael. You have a piece on.
Ouch.
You have a piece on Ford and the problem it has run into in trying to make a profit from battery electric vehicles.
I think the problem is more significant than trying to make a profit. It's trying to stay in business while it's trying to make electric vehicles. Because if it continues to make electric vehicles, it tries to continue to make electric vehicles at the pace that it needs to meet everybody's requirements, it's not going to have any profits to be able to invest in, because its electric car business is eating up all the profits that it's making from its ICE vehicles. So it's the old story: if you're in a hole, stop digging. And that's either there was just something today I saw it in automotive news, where the person who's in charge of their ICE department says there's an awful lot of runway left for ICE vehicles, and he's right. There's plenty of people who don't want to be anywhere close to electric vehicles. I just had breakfast with two of my old high school classmates, and particularly here in the United States, not so much in places like Sweden. There it's like maybe 50-50, but there's a large group of people who just say, we don't want to have anything to do with electric vehicles for a number of reasons, and I think a number of good reasons. So
I mean,
yeah, you don't have a catalytic converter in electric cars, but you've got an awful lot of other precious metals that they'll figure out ways of stealing those as well.
A
Well,
cynic might
the
a cynic might say that that maybe Elon Musk has a good reason for helping Ford to build more electric vehicles.
Oh yeah, yeah. The more electric vehicles they try to build, the more money they lose.
Yeah, well, that and of course the other announcement earlier in the week that Ford looks like is adopting the Tesla plug for
The charging standard, right?
being able to use then the Tesla charging network. And again, I, I guess it's nice that Tesla is making that available to Ford, and who knows what the financial arrangement of that wasn't mentioned and whatever, but yeah, one wonders if Ford can survive it, because if you're already if your expense to making a vehicle is already greater than your competition, and you have to reach scale, and the competition has then the opportunity to reduce prices because apparently they're reporting a profit. That's how monopolies get created. Ooh,
Yeah.
ouch.
I didn't go very deeply into the economics. I'll leave that to someone else. All I've done here is try to point out the amount of money that they're losing, and the projection on the money that they're losing, at the same time as that they're losing, as well as GM losing market share in China, because the Chinese are promoting their own cars and not like they were in the past, promoting Fords and particularly Buicks. So these companies have focused a lot on building up their profitability by selling cars in China, and suddenly China's closing, turning off the spigot.
Yeah.
And they've opened up for instead of focusing on the home market and making that a solid base for their cars. They've sort of watered themselves down by going to China and depending on China because, oh, well, it's a big market and we can sell 50% of our cars there and make money on them, but without really understanding what the potential danger is from a geopolitical standpoint. They could have turned off the spigot a long time before, and they can do it very easily now. And they did with Toyota when there was a spat with Toyota. I can't remember exactly what the problem was. It had something to do with China saying that they own some islands that belong to Japan, and Japan said, no, you don't. And suddenly everybody stopped buying Toyotas in China, and that went on for quite a while, and they lost a lot of sales as a result of that. And the Chinese Communist Party says, don't buy those cars, and people listen. So
we should have probably invited Fred Dreyer to come on this one, and he'd tell us how the opportunity to make an internal combustion engine that is essentially non-polluting or very close to zero carbon emissions, and if you take the whole vehicle together, and you look at the sourcing of the fuel as well as now the sourcing of the batteries and all that stuff, that there could still be a runway for ICE vehicles that are very efficient.
We should never have been doing what we've been doing, forcing people to close down their ICE operations, handing the market. As I said in the last issue, Geely has now taken over all of Volvo's ICE. That was a real schnicker job. And then has done the same thing with Renault, going into a joint venture with them. They're controlling the market on ICE vehicles so that they'll be produced when, when people realize that they shouldn't have been buying all of these electric vehicles because they can't operate them because we can't make enough electricity. By the way, I had, on my way from my cousin in southern Pennsylvania to Scranton, I stopped at another cousin who lives close to Reading, Pennsylvania. And his son was there. Son is about 38 years old. And he works for Pennsylvania's largest electricity producer. Now, as I think we've talked about before, Pennsylvania is the coal country. Bituminous over in the Pittsburgh area where Alan is from, and anthracite in the eastern and northeastern area of Pennsylvania where I'm from. And bituminous was used in the locomotives and for heating because it's clean. Sorry, anthracite and bituminous has been used in making coal where they can control it better. And everybody had coal stoves. Everything was run with coal, whether it was cooking or heating or whatever, making electricity. Pennsylvania is one of the first states to move very quickly into nuclear. So it's one of the largest nuclear states. He said, my cousin's son said, yeah, we know that we're not going to be able to produce enough electricity if everybody had electric cars. We know that, but we can't go against that. We want to be able to build up the electricity because of course we're in the business of selling electricity. So if more and more people are running cars with electricity, it's good business for us to be in because more and more people will be using electricity. But at a certain point, we're not going to be able to supply that electricity unless we really increase our production capability. And the only way we can really increase our production capability is to add more nuclear, because we won't be able to make it up with gas, because that's the other. It's nuclear and gas in Pennsylvania. We won't be able to make it up in gas because of the pollution and the environmental controls. So we're in a position right now where we have to start thinking very seriously about adding capacity, nuclear capacity, because we'll never get there with renewables, certainly not with solar, and definitely not with wind, because if they're not reliable, we can't do enough of that. So, I mean, they're sitting there, it's like the catbird seat. They're going to get more demand. They know they can't meet that demand with what they've got right now. So they're going to have to add more capacity. We never should have gotten, they know the situation. We never should have gotten ourselves in a situation where we'll exceed our capacity, and then we'll have to brake in order to be able to just keep the lights on in order to be able to build. Because at the same time as the capacity is going up, people are saying, well, no, we can't have nuclear. We have to, everything has to be either solar or, that's not the answer.
Michael.
Yes, sir.
When demand outstrips supply, what do? Raise the price. Raise the price.
Yeah, exactly. Which is what's happened in Europe.
Raise the price.
Right. So the price of electricity in Sweden has gone from here. Let's see it here to here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what they're going to do.
Right. And the governments are making up the difference because
the government's going to make up the difference in the price of electricity.
They're already doing that in all of the countries, almost all of the countries in Europe, because the price of electricity has gone up so fast because of the war.
Oh my goodness, we're going to have to elect ourselves a Republican here. I mean, as opposed to, these, what, really? Oh my goodness. We're going to subsidize the price. I mean, or these good electric companies will decide, otherwise they'll ration it. It'll be like butter rations.
Yeah, exactly. And so if they raise the price, the only people who will be able to drive are rich, because they'll be the only ones who can afford the price. But that's okay, because it's only rich people who are buying electric cars anyway.
Okay,
Only the
so
rich,
life's good here.
only the rich will drive.
No, I mean, this is, look, I mean, this is economics, you know, 001, 00.5.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, this is what is being done here. And this is all being presented as, of course, electricity's free because of the sun gives it to us.
Yeah, the odd
The
thing,
wind gives it to us. I mean, how long does it take to build a nuclear power plant? Plus,
unfortunately,
it's not been 30 years since Fukushima. Fukushima occurred like 30 years after 3 Mile Island, and we were about ready to start building nukes again. And then Fukushima happens. Got to wait another 30 years. And for who knows what reason, it takes forever to build one, even though I guess the French have figured out how to build safe nuclear power plants. But my goodness, nobody's going to do that. Now we have like spinning blades going around. I don't know who produces the turbines for that. Are they made in America?
China,
There you go.
where the solar panels produced, China.
There you go.
Yeah.
Where's the lithium come from and the rare earth stuff?
This is a test.
Whatever. Who knows? I mean, whereas
That's
my goodness,
that's
in Oil City, Pennsylvania, the darn stuff was coming out of bubbling out of the ground. And then somebody just figured out that if we like cracked the rock, all this stuff was like totally all under Pennsylvania, the whole Northeast, everywhere. The price of gas like went, supply went to infinity. And then all of a sudden somebody said, well, no, let's use free electricity. My mother always told me to turn off the lights. I mean, electricity was expensive.
She probably told you to close the lights if it was Pittsburgh.
Yeah, of course. We couldn't afford a car either, so whatever. It is whatever.
Moving along in the dispatcher, Michael and Alan here. You have a headline: Volvo cars. They had a very good first quarter, and then came news of layoffs.
Yeah, it was. I've got some good news and some bad news, but it wasn't at the same time. I'm going to give you the good news, and then tomorrow I'm going to give you the bad news. So they had a profit, but then shortly after, I mean, almost within hours, they announced that they were going to be laying off 1,300 employees, which, I mean, in the total scheme of things, it's not huge, but it's a start. And what they're saying, and have been saying, is that it's a whole different group of people that they have to have on board in order to be able to build the kinds of cars that they're building. And they've got someone in there who has no connection to the car companies or car automotive. They've just hired a new designer that has no connection to automotive. They've got people in there that have no connection to Gothenburg, which is the home of the company. So there's no connection to what was before and what potentially has to be in the future for us to be able to survive as a Chinese company making electric cars. And that's a message. We did all this before. We sold off our ICE. We've burned the bridges. There's no going back. We have to make electric cars because we no longer control the ICE cars. But unfortunately, the profits that they have made, all of those profits are coming from their ICE vehicles, and they've committed to stop selling ICE vehicles sometime in the very, very near future. And they're going to have to figure out a way of selling electric vehicles for profits that are similar to the ones that they have right now, and they're basically saying, we don't think we can do that, so we better start now laying off people to make sure that when we do start losing money, we don't lose a lot of money based on the folks that we have. So they're in a similar situation to Ford from the financial standpoint, but they're in there for different reasons. And I don't know what's going to happen at some point in time. What are the Chinese, if they stop making profits, what are they going to do? China, Geely owns 80% of the stock in the company. They sold 20% of the company in order to get money out, and they got all the money out that they had put into it. I mean, they only paid a couple of billion for the company to start with. So, don't know. It doesn't look really good for the company. They've been trying to get over 1 million cars, and they saw Tesla zooming past them just a couple of years ago, and Tesla's on its way to 2 million, and they're still stuck underneath 1.
You also tackle Zoox and the self-certification it's doing when it comes to safety standards.
I can't believe that the NHTSA, Department of Transportation, and NHTSA gets themselves into these situations where there are laws on the books, there are regulations in place. The self-certification really isn't. I mean, they've oversold this whole thing of self-certification. Self-certification only means that instead of having a certification organization in Germany or the Netherlands or the UK or Sweden, all of which can do certification, instead of using them to say you did what you're supposed to do, they have their own testing facilities. Every car company has its own testing facilities. It goes through all of the tests that these company organizations, some private, some sort of semi-private in Europe, go through in order to do the type approval. They go through exactly the same. The Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standards are very similar to the type approval standards that are built up around the UNECE, the regulations and standards or requirements that are set up within UNECE. It's just that the companies do this, and the cars get put on, and the companies say that we've gone through the test, we certify that the cars meet the Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standards, and then they go out on the roads. And if it turns out that something happens and they find out that there's a problem, then the car companies are obligated to tell NHTSA that these cars have a fault, and NHTSA then issues a recall, and they recall the cars. The problem is fixed, and they're certified that the problem is fixed, and then they allow the cars to be continue to be sold or put back in the market. They don't have that, or they didn't have that, the sort of recall process, because then they'd be recalling cars that they said that they had actually tested in Europe. So with self-certification, the so-called self-certification, it's I say it's exactly the same as it is in Europe. But the laws and requirements are there. They're in place. And what I've said in this article about Zoox, there is no car that's allowed to drive on a road without a driver. And that's according to the laws. The Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standards laws say that the car has to have a driver. If you say, which is what this smart woman who used to work for NHTSA is saying, who now works for Zoox, since we don't have a driver, we don't have to pass that requirement that has a driver in the requirement. It sounds a little bit circular. So yeah, we can make analogies, however many analogies that we can. I don't have to apply. I don't have to acknowledge that law exists, because I don't acknowledge that law exists. So we don't have a driver, therefore we don't need to have our cars have a driver, and that needs to. How can you be? We're taking time to understand this. What's to understand? Either you have a driver, you don't have a driver. If you don't have a driver, you shouldn't have the car on the road. In those places where Cruise is operating, where Waymo is operating, they have gotten the approval of the local authorities. They've gotten a pass by NHTSA that gives them the opportunity to do something that's out of the FMVSS, and that's part of FMVSS NHTSA has given itself the right to, for a period of time with a certain number of vehicles in certain situations, to give them an exception, and they can do that. But Zoox says we don't need an exception. It's the same thing with Tesla. Tesla says we don't need an exception to be able to operate full self-driving, because we tell our car owners they have to have their hands on the wheel. So at one point they say it's full self-driving and it will fully self-drive itself, but we don't have to tell anybody about that because we tell people that they have to have their hands on the wheel. Zoox is saying we don't have to comply with the requirements that say it has to have a driver because we don't have a driver. What am I missing?
The driver.
I'm missing a driver in Zoox. I'm missing a driver in Cruise, but at least we know that they're doing what they're doing because they've got the permission to do it. Zoox is saying we don't need permission.
Yeah, I mean, this suggestion in Florida has been, if you want to do this, you take the responsibility of cleaning up the mess that you created if the thing doesn't work. And the question is the insurance, is the responsibility, is a certification that we've done, we believe that we've done what we need to do, such that the risk reward situation that exists with this entity, that the reward is substantially greater than the risk, and that out of that reward there is the opportunity and the opportunity to fix things so everyone is somewhat made whole. Now, of course, if somebody dies, you can't quite make that whole, although it's done every day. Okay, airlines don't guarantee that they won't crash, but if they do, then people are made whole. Amtrak doesn't guarantee that you don't die on an Amtrak train, but and there are limitations to the extent that they will make you whole should you die when the train runs off the track, because who knows what. Okay, so life is a risk. Nobody can guarantee anything. Guarantee. I mean, there has to be some time and a mechanism by which to make whole. And of course, one would love to have associated with all that the opportunity to be able to go and do these kinds of things. If you think you're, it's good enough. Okay. Then you have some public entity that then stands over you and then makes sure that, it is good enough, which is what happens with car crashes today. And why we put up with whatever, 40,000 dying per year, whatever. Why? Because the value that it delivers society. I mean, everybody's decided, I guess nobody will admit it, but that the value is greater than the risk.
But I
And
pointed out in the earlier article, the first article,
yeah, I mean, we've discussed it a lot, but go ahead, go.
the third of the accidents and deaths related to accidents are the result of people driving under the influence of something. They're driving, their driving is diminished. Their driving ability of driving is diminished. Either some of it is sleep related, some of it is taking drugs.
We call it misbehavior.
The majority of it is because people have gotten in the car, been able to turn on the vehicle and drive the vehicle under the influence of alcohol. That's the primary. We could stop that.
We could have stopped it 30 years ago, 40 years ago,
Exactly.
whatever. Yeah.
A third of those accidents wouldn't happen if people are not able to drive unimpaired. Why haven't we done that?
Well, the reason because the public doesn't want it.
Well, does the public? All right, you can say people have been prevented. People who like to smoke are prevented from smoking because why? Because they can't. They can smoke. They can't smoke anywhere in public, principally.
It totally floored me when New York was able to tell folks you can't smoke in a bar. You have to smoke outside. When they passed that sucker, I said there is no way New Yorkers are going to, line up and do that. It amazes me that they did. And maybe if we would have put in the locks, the ignition locks, people would have. We did end up. I said I never wear a seatbelt. Well, they were so damn uncomfortable. Now, where is it? Backseat of an Uber. I mean, I 13 different ones. Okay.
And those things have had a major impact, positive in the number of accidents. Not in the number of accidents. Seatbelts haven't prevented accidents, but they've
saved lives. Without a doubt, you don't get thrown. I mean, if the thing starts flipping and you don't have a say, you go through the window. Of course, yeah, absolutely.
So we have laws in place which require drivers. We do not have any situations where we can depend. I don't even say 50%, even less than 50%. On a robot driving a car anywhere. And we shouldn't have cars on the road being driven by robots because some company says, we think it's safe. We just shouldn't. Otherwise, we should change the laws. If we don't want to have laws that say we require a driver, change the law. But don't allow people to be on the road without special permission if they don't have a driver in the vehicle. That's all I'm saying.
But the practical question with that is, what the heck is that? Okay, and which public official, which government employee, which elected official is going to go out and try to do that? I mean,
the same people who passed federal motor vehicle safety standards didn't happen in 1776. Right, those came along in the 1960s,
and cars were being sold in 1908. Ford was selling them.
Yeah, and the reason the federal motor vehicle safety standards came into practice was folks like Princeton graduate Ralph Nader and
class of 55.
Class of 55. And NHTSA was put into law by. Nixon, and I mean these things are 50 years old, but we shouldn't say, well, they only applied then, they don't apply now, because now we have robots who can drive cars. We think so. Let's ignore the laws and the rules and the standards that are requirements that are already out there and just make up our own. No, we shouldn't do that.
Yeah, but the rules are for the old thing. I mean, a driverless car is not a 55 Chevy. Okay, and it's a new gizmo.
Yeah. So
all right, and the fact is, everybody's sort of throws their arm up. There probably should just be a few more exemptions.
Yeah.
And how much damage are you really going to cause with 1,000 of these things out there?
When they approve, there should be people who are active enough to test and work with these so that they can develop a standard that could be used for driverless cars. Until that day, Zoox should not be out there saying our cars don't need a driver, therefore we don't have to comply with the federal motor vehicle safety standards. Either you've got a standard that everybody has to comply with, or you don't. But there shouldn't be someone who says, "No, we don't think we need it." So this sort of, I've talked about this in other terms as well.
I know, and
I don't really think I need to stop at that stop sign, because everybody thinks that people should stop at stop signs, but I don't believe in stop signs. So I'm just going to go through the stop sign, and if somebody hits me,
the purpose of a stop sign is because for a human to be able to determine if there's somebody coming one way or another, you got to turn your head and you got to turn your head. The amount of time that it takes you to do the recognition and decide that you can go is such that you better come to a stop.
That's
or at least,
logical.
Roll through it very slowly.
Pretty
But
logical.
if you come to it and your sensor is good enough to instantaneously determine that, instantaneously down, reduce it by an order of magnitude, why stop? Especially you that's trying to save the planet, you're just burning up, some more electricity and causing more carbon and pollution.
I'm not trying to save the planet. The planet's going to save itself. It's humanity.
I know
I'd like to save humanity.
Yeah, no, seriously, the purpose of the stop sign is for the sensor system and the control system that happens to be controlling the vehicle, requires the time, and that time required to be able to ascertain that is such that you should come to a stop.
Agreed.
So if the issue is there anybody coming? Is it safe to go? If you've determined that through V2V communications, and you've done that with a probability that's reasonably high, and you have insurance to take care of the cases in which, I screwed up, why aren't you good to go?
When we have vehicle-to-vehicle communication that can do that, and sensors that can see around corners, which they can't today, then fine, get rid of the stop sign. Until then, stop signs exist. Stop.
But stop signs are at more than corners where you can't see around the corner. There are places where, there's at least however many meters of sight distance in which you can see it happening. If you can turn your net fast enough and you have a good enough,
this is a long conversation.
I know. No, and I'm being argumentative. I agree.
Well, we want to tell you there is more in the dispatcher as well, and you even have a guest author in the Musings section.
Our guest author, Glenn Mercer. I met Glenn through Elon. He's been part of the readership of the dispatcher for quite some time. He's been part of the Smart Driving Car Summit. He was in our Smart Driving Car Summit panel on who's going to build smart driving cars.
Yeah.
To call him an expert in the automotive, particularly in the automotive industry. He's an expert in the automotive industry. So this is a very, very good musings written about how cars are and most probably could be and should be sold either directly or indirectly. And he goes through the whole distribution. Yeah. It's really very well written by an expert.
The whole issue very
great.
Well written.
He's great. Yeah.
Thank you. Alan, turning to the Smart Driving Cars newsletter quickly, we mentioned already Tesla's partnership with Ford, and now beyond that, I guess the Model Y is now the best-selling car in the world.
Yeah, well, I mean, whatever it is, to do that, it requires some recognition. Yeah, great. I mean, it's non-trivial, but whatever. Yes.
FSD4 has started to roll out, and a Tesla data leak reportedly has revealed safety complaints from owners, thousands of them. The company has allegedly tried to keep that data private, and I think you're saying they shouldn't.
Yeah, I think all companies should release the complaints from customers, and because customers have experience with the product, and it's experience that you may not have gotten in all your testing and all this stuff that you've got, and you've tripped over what you didn't know. And the toughest part of all this business, or any business, is you don't know what you don't know. And if your customers are helping you and letting you know things, certainly you should pay attention to it. I'm assuming Tesla paid attention to it. I'm assuming GM pays attention to it. But the thing that Tesla has had, the real value that Tesla has had, is not only have they gotten the comments from the users, but they also have the data of what the hell happened. And they put a mechanism in their cars to collect that, to store it and collect it, which is not what the other folks have done. So they're sitting on a trove of valuable information on safety. And because it's valuable information on safety, they should be sharing it with everybody, so everybody can learn, so everything can be made better. Not only their own cars, keeping it for themselves, proprietary information. Oh, we'll let GM, trip over that one on their own. That's what they should be doing. And sure, yeah, things, they aren't perfect. Nobody is. But my goodness, when we finally learn and trip and get and begin to understand it, especially when it's safety related, I think it should be out there in the public domain. And not to be flogged. Oh, you look, 40,000 people die every year
In the US.
in US. Yeah. Not so many in per rated Y in Sweden, but they're not all Teslas. There are some GMs, there's some whatevers, there are whatevers. My goodness. This is valuable information. And treat it as such. Otherwise, then, of course, then we'll publicly flog you. And my goodness, you must be terrible. Who knows? I don't know if it's terrible or not terrible. We don't know what the rates are. We do know, probably, that because of the information system they put in there and the way they capture it and the way they sit there and monitor and the over-the-air updating and all that, the communications piece that they have on there, they have a Vita X. The Vita X is not SpaceX, it's Tesla X. I mean, they get that.
But isn't the issue that this information doesn't belong to them? I thought that was the problem, that the European Commission was saying that you're collecting data that doesn't belong to you, and you're using that data that doesn't belong to you, and that it belongs to, because that's the point that the European Commission has been making.
Whether there are privacy issues and who owns it, and if it's my car, if it's a car that I bought, what are you doing? Monitor, and there's all that stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not, but my goodness, if there's information and their customer complaints that are going in the Tesla. Now, I don't know if somebody said, I complain here, but don't release this information, my complaint, to General Motors. I doubt that that's what people have said, that it should be put out there. And Tesla shouldn't be afraid that, my goodness, this is out there. I think if they do a proper statistical analysis, they can readily show that they have much closer monitoring of their customer set and the performance of their product in the hands of those customers than maybe anybody. That's probably true, simply because of the pipes that they put in there and the monitoring that they do, whether it's legal, illegal, or whatever, I'm not sure. Okay, but this allows you to know what you don't know. Oh man, that's
Yeah.
I think they should be on front with it.
Another issue related to Elon Musk, I don't know if it's an issue or not. The FDA has approved the start of clinical human study of a brain-computer interface from Musk's Neuralink. The company says this could benefit people with paralysis, maybe blindness.
I'm sure there are enormous benefits from it. I just, if we want to start arguing about weird stuff, this is weird stuff. Okay. And I'm sure there's a value proposition there. And the question is, the invasion of privacy, what are you doing? Where are the regulations to make sure? And again, the risk reward aspect of this thing, if this thing turns south, are the people going to be made whole? We sent troops out to the desert and then blew up nuclear bombs around them to, see what the impact of nuclear bombs were on people. We did a lot of stuff that was pretty ugly and probably improperly compensate those folks. But, that's another whole can of worms that one doesn't want to open up here. But yes, I just threw that one in there. If we didn't have enough stuff to argue or, to discuss, we have even more.
And Uber is teaming up with Waymo to add robo-taxis to its app.
When I go to the Uber app, I can do Uber X or Uber, I don't know what they call super expensive, and Uber super, super expensive. Okay. And there are different prices and I can pick one. I always pick the cheap one because I'm a cheap guy. Okay. Where's the Waymo going to be? And if it's not half the price of an Uber X or the cheapest Uber,
why am I taking it?
Huh?
Yeah.
Why are you taking it?
Yeah. Why am I taking it?
Okay. To me, if I look at the value proposition and I put all the value things on some equations with coefficients up in front and proper exponents and inverse tan of the hyperbolic cosine of whatever, something else, whatever, and put that all down into a value proposition. Except, if I can do my selfie, bam.
Yeah. So it's
if I don't have a selfie.
Yeah. How do you do a selfie sitting in the back seat to show that there's no driver in the front seat?
Well, I just do a selfie and I'll tell people, let them imagine, or I'll put it in Chat GPT and, whatever, the selfie is what is the value proposition. But I think this is one and done.
Right.
And if this is a way for Waymo to get one and done customers, you think Ford's in trouble? Waymo's in trouble. Yeah. And we like to argue, I like to argue, their fundamental value is that they have pretty darn good quality of service. Nowhere near as good as an Uber driver, really, unless I have a selfie. And could be affordable. And allow them to make money affordable. If they decide to build a vehicle with sensors that didn't cost $gazillion.
Yeah. So what we're saying is, what's the reason for Uber and Waymo having an agreement when Waymo's whole business is around offering rides, and Uber's whole business is offering rides. They seem to be competitors. So what is it that Waymo is getting out of having an agreement with Uber?
Well, because they have access to a customer set that is already existing, which is the Uber customer set, and they're hopeful that people will select them, so that when you take the money that is paid for the ride and it gets chopped up between Uber, and it used to be chopped up between Uber and a driver, it gets chopped up between Uber and Waymo.
I think one thing that we've realized over the years when it comes to mobile apps is that there's no loyalty with mobile apps. I mean, from 1 minute to the other, if something does something better than the last mobile app you had, then you use it. So if Waymo comes along and says, we can offer you a ride for half of what Uber is offering it to you for, you're going to end up using them instead of using Uber. I mean, everybody.
Well, yeah, apparently the Waymo One app is essentially just as good as Uber's, or if not, they should hire some of my students. We could write that code like I claim in a week. Okay, I think the Uber app is really great. They may have some intellectual property in there that we have to make sure we don't have to step on, so we develop our own. But there's Jesus, there's a lot of former art in that you can do to do a damn good Waymo One app. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either.
I don't know.
Well, I assume you don't have to tip your non-driver. Or rate.
Yeah, you don't have to tip your non. I guess you don't. But guess what? How many of the Uber trips are really with people for which price is important? Not very many. Not very many. And so, that's the, I think, and the thing that we haven't mentioned is the fact that Waymo was just totally crushed in San Francisco by the Teamsters and the council. What are they doing there? They went there as a proof of technology. It worked. So GM Cruise. As a proof of market, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I haven't found the articles in the San Francisco whatever that, hey, we just love having Cruise and Waymo there because of the value that they add to San Francisco. All they do is complain about this, and this. Their proof of market has failed. So maybe they should try someplace else. And that's what we've argued. Try New Jersey. You didn't want to come to New Jersey. We have customers who might appreciate the fact that you can deliver pretty darn good mobility at a very reasonable price and make money. If you're productive in doing it, and forget about going down the curviest road in the world.
Then hopefully those people should read our book.
They should read our book. They should call me. They hate me. They hate me. That's fine.
The book is
it's okay.
The book is coming soon.
You get to listen to whatever you're listening. I can't see the future any better than anybody else. Probably worse. But my goodness, you should hold some people accountable, because the data points of history as to where you've gotten with what you've done a fantastic job in proof of technology. It does work. You didn't crash. You aren't an embarrassment.
Waymo.
Both of them, actually. Both of them. Okay, so you run over a fire. It's fine.
They didn't run over a fireman. They ran over
fire hose. Fire hose. They didn't run over a fireman. Look, Waymo stopped moving because of fog. That is the right thing to do. And to keep the people behind you also from going into fog. That is a virtuous thing to do. Okay? You shouldn't get flogged for that one. Who? They caused a traffic jam. They didn't cause it. It was fog. Nobody can drive in fog. You can't drive when you can't see. What does NHTSA say about that? Does NHTSA say a human can drive in fog? I hope not. Because you can't. You die.
I don't think there's anything in motor vehicle safety standards on fog.
Well, it should be. They should say, you stop for a stop sign in case there's somebody coming. You stop when there's fog, when you can't see.
There's nothing in the federal motor vehicle safety standards related to stop signs.
Okay.
That's where the state comes in.
I know.
Those are the state laws.
Okay, good.
And that's why Michael is with us to help cut through the
I
fog.
know he's able to.
I like that, but thank you.
Anyway, this is always fun. We go on. I hope our listeners and viewers put up with us a little bit. These are not easy issues, okay? They're absolutely not easy issues. And, because nothing is perfect, it is a challenge. And one has to look at the value proposition, and we all have different value propositions, and how to do it. You have to applaud people like Henry Ford who were able to do it. Okay, and Sloan, and all of the others that were able to make it happen.
Well, Michael got to tease the book again, which is great. It's coming.
It's
soon,
coming,
is what we can say.
Yep.
Look
And
forward to it. Michael, thank you for spending
Michael's
time with
working
us
on
again,
it.
Michael.
My pleasure. It's wonderful to be here from Scranton, Pennsylvania, home of the West Scranton Invaders.
Yeah, and home of the President of the United States too.
Yeah, it's all over the place. They changed the highway. They changed the main street going through town. We're gonna drive past. We're gonna do a drive-by past his house because my cousin lives across the street.
Yeah, and on Sunday, he and his wife were at Helen's graduation from St. Andrews, from before the procession through the whole thing and afterwards too. And he just had a normal day of going to celebrate his granddaughter's graduation. And Elizabeth and I were there celebrating Helen's graduation. And it was just fantastic.
And if Helen has watched this all the way through, congratulations, Helen.
Yes, congratulations.
Congratulations. We are just so proud and so overwhelmed.
You can find more on Michael and the Dispatcher at michaellsena.com. Our website is smartdrivingcar.com. You can find us wherever you turn to for podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, Apple, Google, etc. You can get smart speakers to play us too. My tech reports are at textination.com. I'm Fred Fishkin along with Alain Kornhauser. Thanks for listening or watching. Please continue to stay safe.
Thank you, everybody.